Mr. David, you worked with some villages in Africa.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit about it?
Yes, I'm going to look in the camera. Not sure.
No, you can.
Did I mess all this up?
No, it doesn't.
You're going to edit?
It's okay.
Okay. Okay. You want me to look at you?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter?
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's more pleasant to look this way. Yes, I've worked with many villages in Africa, but I'm focused on one particular village called Baima. And Baima is located in Sierra Leone, in the central part of the country, in a township called Bo. And this particular village, it's approximately 10,000 people, and it's ran by a female paramount chief, Chief Tutu.
What is your full name? Madam Tutu?
Yes,
Okay.
Madam Ruth Tutu,
Okay.
yes. That's her full name,
Okay.
yes.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
So she did come here to visit not too long ago.
Yes, Chief Tutu came to the States. She left approximately a month ago. She was here for 2 months. And the reason for her visit was by direction of the president of Sierra Leone, Ernest Bai Koroma. He had asked all of the leaders within the country to do their part in combating Ebola. And Ebola, and I'll speak a little bit more about that shortly, it's much worse than what we see on traditional television or what we hear through the news, because a lot of these things are censored. And then it doesn't make good news. But the deaths in the country, that makes good news. So she came to the United States to try to raise awareness and to raise money to help combat Ebola. Give you an example of what has happened in her particular village, and it's similar to most of the villages that are not close to the capital of the country, which is called Freetown. Probably 90% of the country, they are provinces, as we may call them, and in the provinces, that's where all the villages are. And so in her particular province, since Ebola started, and now it's where it is today, the most help they've received was someone coming to the door and giving them a pamphlet and a bar of soap.
Are you serious?
Yes, and that's what they've gotten. The other help comes from people like me, people that absolutely care and understand the situation. Myself, that is my primary residence, is Sierra Leone, and America is my secondary residence. And so I lived amongst it. I met people that have had, brothers and sisters, aunties, uncles, whatnot, that have passed away from Ebola. I have known people that have caught Ebola and survived it also, I must say that, right? But what we don't see is the challenging parts. We don't see that which is devastating, the schools have been shut down since May.
Since May of 2014.
Yes, 2014. There's no indicator in sight right now. There was a memo that came out through the Department of Education in Sierra Leone, the Minister of the Department of Education, that said, I believe it was WHO, the
World Health Organization.
Yes, they made the decision that the schools should not reopen until they consider the country safe from Ebola. So the schools haven't opened. Transportation.
So are people allowed to go to work, or is everyone confined from going to work?
People.
Is the information that you need?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Fine. We'll call on Tuesday, close on Mondays.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
All right.
So people are allowed to go to work? Or?
People are allowed to go to work.
Thank you.
However, there is a major restriction going on that you're either traveling on the roads between 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., or in some odd cases it's extended to 7 p.m. And what we're learning now, and when I was there, it was very restrictive. Everywhere, checkpoints everywhere. And if you didn't have legitimate travel, according to the authorities, they'll turn you around. Now there are a lot of places you have to have a pass. And so people are going to work, but businesses have basically collapsed. And what I mean by that is, for example, if there's a logging company, the folks are not going to log.
I don't know how to work that.
Because
Okay.
they don't have the ability to travel anymore. You know, the government doesn't see that as essential for a person to log in one district and bring those logs someplace else. They don't want that kind of, traveling going on. So same thing with farming. That
So that's why there's a food shortage, because
Yes.
they're not allowed to farm anymore
they're
since
not
May?
allowed to farm. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that's terrible.
Yeah. And the farms that are going on, of course, they're private, backyard type farms, but nothing on a big scale. A lot of things have changed. Even
The schools are still shut down.
the schools are still shut down. Yes. Yes.
Now,
And
you met with Dr. Biden
briefly, yes.
briefly.
Briefly.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Just a little.
It was-
I know you can't talk
it
much
was-
about meeting with Dr.
Well,
just a
it was
little.
more of a hello.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
it.
Okay.
The person that really had the connection to her was Chief Tutu. That's where the connection came from. Because she was asked by the president as one of 4 female paramount chiefs in the country to meet with her. And since I'm one of Chief Tutu's section chiefs, then you have some perks there. So there's no credit on this end.
Oh my goodness. So, what does Madame Tutu, her village, well, it's more than just a village, it's not like it is here, what are they in need of?
Well, they're in need of everything, actually. But what they're in immediate need of, they need to fix up the clinic. There's a clinic there that's basically is dilapidated. The walls are coming down.
This is away from the city, because there has been money going into the major city, Freeport.
Freetown.
Freetown,
Yes.
excuse me, I'm not versed on.
Yes, Freetown has approximately 1.6 million people in Freetown, and the country itself is just shy of 6 million. So you can see, Freetown is a very small in geographic, and so it's very populated, and a lot of the services or monies, that's where it goes, that's where it stays. When you're talking about into the provinces or the villages, very, very little. If it's not being brought through by one of the church organizations, faith-based organizations, or an NGO like this one, you will see very little action from the government.
May I ask you a question a little bit off path?
Yes.
You were formerly in law enforcement
Mhm.
locally here in Sacramento.
Yeah.
What took you from working in law enforcement to Africa, if I may ask? I know it stunned you, but can I ask?
Yes, is that for me as an African American, when I'm looking at the big picture of things, my impact was not being felt by doing the work that I was doing. What I'm doing now, the folks, the recipients, definitely they're much more beneficial, and they receive it much better. They need what we're doing. I'm trying to pad my words a little bit here, but in America, we have greater needs elsewhere than what we have here in America, and that's something that touched my heart to say, help the neediest of the neediest. Even though we have poor people in America,
We do have.
but we have extremely poor people elsewhere. And so for myself, when I looked at this and I, I fell in love with Sierra Leone and fascinated with the country's beauty and everything that it had to offer, but also looking at the downside of things in the country, I combined that with who I was, the ability to know that I've done my share in America, being African American, being educated, being experienced. I says, these people need me. They need me. And so I made a commitment, to that country, in particular to the village of Bible. And,
Now, you mean to interrupt, but you started a school there.
yes,
Is it for boys and girls, or just
Yes.
boys go, just,
yes, this particular school is not open yet, right? And that was my intention when I first came back this particular time, was to focus strictly on the school. But as I told you earlier that we had to change gears because of the Ebola virus. No one ever suspected that it would be this bad. No one did. And when I traveled the country. I resided in Freetown a lot, and also in Bo, which that's the Bo district where the village is. There was no Ebola in Bo, and there was no Ebola in Freetown. When I left the country 2 weeks later, there were cases of Ebola in Bo and in Freetown. And now Freetown has more cases than any other part of the country. In some days, they're clocking, 50 plus deaths per day from Ebola, just in that one small area.
I want you to elaborate, because some people are afraid. I did a segment before. It's not something that you can just catch casually, but a lot of people are afraid of. It has to be direct contact with body fluids. And that's what people really should understand.
Yes.
And there's an incubation period, because a lot of people have a fear of someone even coming back from another country.
Yes.
There's that stigma on everybody.
Well, I would tell you this. First of all, I don't have Ebola. Okay.
I know. I'm just saying, but
Yes.
a lot of people have a fear.
And they should, because, for the lack of better words, they're ignorant. They just don't know. And what you don't know, they're afraid of. And I understand that. That's the same thing out there, is that when I was there, folks, they had all kinds of different ideas about Ebola, First, it was heavily spread that it was the monkeys. And, I guess the monkeys are running around now saying we had nothing to do with it. It wasn't us.
Now, there needs to be some help with the wells there, because the wells are not covered in the particular town that you were talking about.
Yes.
With Madame Tutu.
Yes.
The wells are exposed.
That's correct. And so what we're trying to do as an organization, which is the Family Enrichment Services of Sierra Leone, we're simply just trying to give them one clean water supply. And so we want to get a well dug. We want to make this a mechanical well that we can pump fresh water into the clinic.